This is the story of King Arthur. The boy who became king, pulled the sword from the stone, defeated the Saxons, fought against his evil uncle Mordred, met Merlin, rode a magical horse named Bucephalus, had an affair with a woman named Guinevere, had another woman named Morgan Le Fay, threw a sword into a lake after making a promise and ultimately failed to keep that promise, was betrayed by one of his best friends, accidentally murdered that friend's sister, and then died in battle. Now, if that doesn't sound like your cup of tea, then this video might not be for you. Arthur's sword, Excalibur, teaches us how to exercise self-control. Arthur's table teaches us how to foster balance in our relationships. For example, he once confronted a giant named Colgravens, who was terrorizing the countryside. Now, the interesting thing about this fight is that it never actually happened, and it quickly became one of the most recognizable symbols of the Arthurian legend. His story teaches us that balance is essential to leading a fulfilling life. Facing our fears and challenges head-on, practicing self-control, and seeking harmony in our relationships, we can create balance in our own lives and become the heroes of our own stories. Just like King Arthur, we may face obstacles and setbacks along the way, but as long as we remain true to ourselves and our values, we can achieve anything we set out to do. What are your thoughts on the myth of King Arthur? How do you see it as a metaphor for finding balance in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos on mythology and philosophy. Thank you for watching. Now, there are a lot of things that we could say about the Round Table, but I want to focus on two. There was no head of the table because everyone sat around it in perfect harmony. Second, the occupants of the table. The Knights of the Round Table were a diverse group of people from different backgrounds and walks of life. They were united together by their loyalty to King Arthur and their commitment to the values of chivalry, honor, and courtesy. The Round Table is such a potent symbol because it represents the ideal of balance. It reminds us that no one person or group is more important than the whole. We need to work together and value each other's contributions if we want to achieve great things. But unfortunately, as we all know, the Knights of the Round Table didn't always live up to these ideals. They often argued and fought with each other, and they weren't always successful in their quests. But even in their failures, they were able to learn valuable lessons and grow as individuals. This is why the story of King Arthur is so important today. It reminds us that we are all capable of great things if we are willing to work together and strive for balance. It also reminds us that we're all human and we're bound to make mistakes. But as long as we're willing to learn from our mistakes and keep trying, we can achieve anything we set our minds to. Arthur sent diplomats to Grevens's fortress to discuss terms of surrender, but Grevens refused to surrender. He wanted to fight, so Arthur played a trick on him, pretended to go home, then returned with a much larger force and destroyed the giant's fortress. I love this story because it shows that violence isn't always necessary. Sometimes it's smarter to try diplomacy first. If that doesn't work, it's even smarter to destroy the problem. From a distance, of course, there were times where violence was necessary. When Arthur fought against the Saxons, for example, but I think we can all agree that it's always best to avoid conflict if possible. This is something that we all know deep down, but we often forget in practice. Many of us spend far too much time fighting pointless battles when we should be focusing on more important things. If we pay attention, we can learn how to create balance in our lives by looking at the life of a mythical king. According to legend, Arthur was given the sword Excalibur by the Lady of the Lake. But in exchange for the sword, Arthur had to promise that he would return it to the lake after he was done using it. Now, some people think that this means that Arthur was destined to die, but I don't think so. I think it means that Arthur was destined to change. Arthur was once a young boy who needed a sword to protect himself from harm. But as he grew older, he became a great warrior who didn't need a sword to protect him. In fact, he became so powerful that he was known throughout the land as the once and future king. But even great warriors sometimes forget that their swords are only useful tools. And when they pick up their swords and take out their aggression on innocent people, their swords turn against them. That Arthur had to learn that it was okay to put his sword away and trust that he could handle whatever came his way without it. Some might say that this is the ultimate test of balance, the ability to choose between wielding power and putting it away. And Arthur was only able to pass this test once he learned that the greatest weapon of all was compassion. This is the lesson that many of us forget when we're faced with difficult situations. Just because we have the ability to respond with anger or aggression doesn't mean that we should. Most of the time, the best response is compassion. Welcome to the channel. But I think we can all agree that life is stressful, and sometimes when life gets too stressful, we all need to escape for a while. So why do people still care about this ancient myth today? Because despite being separated by hundreds of years, the lessons in the myth are still relevant. You see, King Arthur wasn't exactly born a hero. In fact, he started off as a young man who had to pull a sword from a stone in order to prove that he was the true heir to the throne. He didn't just pull the sword out of the stone, though. He pulled it out of the stone twice. And the second time he pulled it out of the stone, he also pulled a magical scabbard that gave him many supernatural powers. Now, some would say that this was luck, but I don't think so. I think there's a lesson here about preparation meeting opportunity. If Arthur hadn't prepared himself to become king by training as a warrior and learning about his responsibilities, he wouldn't have been able to seize the moment when it presented itself. This is why we have to prepare ourselves for opportunities, rather than waiting for opportunities to prepare us. The gym, for example, isn't going to get any less busy as you wait for it to become convenient for you. Eventually, you'll have to put in the work. This is also why studying a subject becomes easier as you study more and more about it. It's only hard at first because you have to lay the foundation. Once you've done the hard work up front, the rest becomes much easier. And when we strip away the magic and mayhem, what's left is a powerful story of balance. And what better way to do that than with a good story? We tell stories and we listen to stories because stories are the most effective way to transmit information across generations. If you want to understand a culture, study their stories. They will show you what they value, what they believe, and what they aspire to be. The story of King Arthur is one of the most well-known and enduring tales in Western literature. Arthur's trials teach us how to manage our emotions. Let's start by talking about Arthur's trials. In addition to conquering the challenge of becoming king, Arthur also had to face many other trials during his reign. Next, let's talk about Arthur's sword, Excalibur. Finally, let's talk about Arthur's table. The Round Table was a creation of King Arthur's close friend, Sir Kay. The legend of King Arthur has captured the imaginations of people for centuries,